Hello, it's good to see you. Today we are going to read some more of my story, Holiday. We are into part 2 and we're at chapter 12 at this point. And this is a perfect distraction for me because I just accidentally ordered an audiobook in German and I cannot figure out how to cancel the purchase, and I'm very frustrated right now. I tried to purchase an audiobook, I wanted it, but somehow I ended up with the German version. And Amazon doesn't want to let me cancel it for some reason. I don't need an audiobook in German. 10 hours of German, I can live without that. No offense if you're... I'm just saying, I don't speak German, and I'm very frustrated that I've made this purchase, and now I can't seem to cancel it. Well, let's just read. Let me just get into it. All right. Okay, so we're into part 2, chapter 12. Everything went dark. Portia instinctively reached out and grabbed Lucifer's hand. "Don't worry," he said. "Everything is okay. Pretend you're at the movies and just watch. We'll discuss everything when it's over." A faint light slowly grew in front of them. Portia felt a sense of movement and gripped Lucifer's hand even tighter. "That feeling will pass in a moment," he said. "Here we go." A scene appeared before them like the opening of a play. They found themselves in nearly complete darkness, with just enough ambient light to see that they were inside of a very large building. They heard the sound of footsteps and a disapproving grunt. "No." Portia saw a hand reach up to the ceiling. The fingers waved a little, and a large light appeared on the ceiling. It was a long, glowing fixture. Several more appeared on the ceiling in other parts of the building, and finally Portia could see just how large the building was. It was expansive, almost to the point that all 4 walls were beyond her field of vision. An elderly man stood beneath the first light, hands on his hips, nodding. "That's good," he muttered to himself. He glanced down at the floor and waved his right hand over a portion of it. A large puddle of water appeared. He knelt down and dipped his hand in the water, then put his fingers up to his lips to taste it. His face reflected across the rippling surface. "What is this?" Portia whispered to Lucifer. "The beginning," Lucifer said. "Just watch." "That's God," she said. "I recognize him." Lucifer nodded and remained silent. God conjured a chair and sat down. The water slowly crept up and surrounded his shoes. He sat up in the chair and raised his hands. "What about this?" he said, and he flicked his fingers outward several times. Little white misshapen blobs appeared all around him on the floor. The blobs jiggled and vibrated. One of them managed to roll a little, and it ended up in the water where it sat vibrating and making tiny ripples. God stood up, pushed the chair back, and looked around at his creations. He picked up a blob and studied it, turning it over in his hands. In frustration, he threw it as hard as he could. It landed about 30 feet away with a loud, echoing smack on the floor. He stood there and stared at it where it landed for quite a while. In the silence, Portia turned to Lucifer again. He looked at her and shook his head before she could say anything. They went back to watching the scene in front of them. After a bit, God picked up another blob. It vibrated intensely as soon as he touched it. He wondered if it somehow knew what he'd just done to the other blob and feared a similar fate. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're okay." He pinched the blob and started pulling. The material stayed stretched out, so he pulled more sections away from the mass. After a little shaping and pulling, he had created a rudimentary little stick figure being. He set it down on the floor and saw that it was knee-high to him. A faint splashing sound behind him caught his attention, and he turned to see what it was. The blob that he had thrown had rolled its way over to the edge of the water, and it continued flipping itself, end over end, getting closer to God with every flip. It splashed water out ahead of itself as it moved. God walked toward the blob on the move and met it halfway. "What are you..." He looked back at the other blobs and they were all motionless. The knee-high creature had fallen to the floor. What? He scooped the vibrating blob out of the water and looked it over. You want to move, don't you? He pulled the blob here and there, giving it a head, arms, and legs. It stood knee-high, just like the other creation. God gathered up several blobs at a time and carried them over to his chair, where he sat down and shaped them into forms that resembled his own. Most of the creatures either fell forward or back onto the floor and stayed there, or they slumped over and remained semi-upright. The creature that he picked up from the water acted very differently. Portia kept her eye on it while she and Lucifer watched God working with the other blobs. Look at that one, she whispered to Lucifer, pointing at it. It's holding onto the chair. Why is he not paying any attention to it? It's like it wants to be picked up or something. He's hoping some of the others will do the same thing, Lucifer said. Do they? Will they? Lucifer shook his head. I guess that throw really shook it up. Shh, Portia chuckled. Or the baptism. Be quiet. The scene changed quickly while they were talking. When Portia looked back up, God was gone, and the blobs, some shaped, some not, were alone in the room. The one that God had thrown was standing up, holding on tightly to one of the chair legs. The others barely moved. After a few seconds, the scene darkened and then lit up again. God was back in the room, staring at a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it, muttered something under his breath, and then looked down at the creature holding onto the chair leg. God waved his hand over the creature, and it slowly began to grow in size. Distinct features began to take shape. At the end of the process, the figure, a man, was facing God. Portia and Lucifer couldn't see his face. The man bowed before God, resting a hand on God's shoe. Rise up, God said. Let me take a look at you. The man slowly stood back up. He looked himself over as God was doing the same. It's good, God said, folding the paper back up and putting it in his pocket. Now help me with the others. The man, still with his back turned to Portia and Lucifer, picked up a blob nearby. He held it out. God stared at it, cockeyed, and then sighed. He waved his hand over it, and the man gently set it down on the floor. The blob transformed into a knee-high stick figure like the ones God had molded previously. God waved his hand over another blob nearby, and the same thing happened again and again until he had created about 100 stick figures. The stick figures ran into one another, all dazed and stumbling around. Nearly all of them fell to the floor, unable to get back up. God cried out in anger. He pulled the paper back out of his pocket, unfolded it, and looked at it again before crumpling it up and throwing it to the floor. I need more ideas, he said. And you, he pointed at the man, you need a name. I want you to take care of my creations until I get back. And you will be... The man turned toward Portia and Lucifer, and Portia gasped. I'll call you Lucifer, God and Portia said. Chapter 13. Jerry was a nervous wreck. He paced around the apartment, looking behind doors, throwing out random questions, and wiping sweat off his forehead. He came to a stop for a moment in the kitchen to grab a beer from the refrigerator. There's a way out of this, he said to Fedra while looking for a bottle opener. There has to be. I just haven't figured it out yet. Fedra took a bottle opener out of a nearby drawer and opened his beer for him. He took a good long drink. You're not going to calm down, are you? She asked. Jerry set his beer down and wiped his mouth on his sleeve. Is that a serious question? Like you're actually asking for an answer? She nodded. He threw up his hands. Of course I'm not. How the hell can you expect me to? I made a deal with a guy and now he's mad at me. And then you tell me, what, there may be 1 or 2 more angels coming back to deal with me? Or 3, Fedra said quietly. There's no way to know for sure. He stared at her, his eyes wide. Is this situation just going to keep getting worse? The longer you're here, the shittier everything gets. Fedra looked around the kitchen. We need to get you out of here. And go where? Jerry looked down at his beer bottle. He had a thought and then slowly looked back up at Fedra. What is this? He asked. What are you doing, really? This doesn't make any sense. You could fix this in 2 seconds by just... He turned away from her and let out a sigh, rubbing his face. You're wondering why I don't just snap my fingers and make this all go away, she said. Is that it? He turned back toward her. Yeah, basically. What if we just go away? Go somewhere where he'll never find us? It's not really Aiden or the others I'm worried about, Fedra said. Who? What? It's the one they report to. That's who. That's what. When he finds out what I've done, what we've done... Oh no, you're not dragging me into that. Fedra moved in closer. Jerry started to back away, but she grabbed his arms and held on tight. You're already involved, she whispered harshly. It's too late now. You wanted a way out of your deal? We're in this together whether you like it or not. She let his arms go and backed off a little. I'm still working this out, she said more gently. Your best shot at getting out of this is by staying with me, but I can't concentrate with you pacing around like a caged animal. I need you to calm down. Yeah, well, I can't just flip a switch and calm down. She took his hand and led him over to one of the bar stools. Have a seat, she said, patting the stool. Jerry sat down. Are we going to do some meditating or something? Fedra shook her head. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath and then let it out slowly. Jerry followed her instructions and then opened his eyes and looked at her. Why are you staying here? He asked. You can leave Earth, right? Aiden can, so I'm assuming you can too. How come you don't just leave here? Go back to heaven or wherever it is you can go. Why stay here with me when you know this is where Aiden will come back to? They'll find me no matter where I go. More than likely, I'll be detained far away from here until God comes back, and then I'll have to answer to him. Yeah, but you haven't answered the question. Why stay here with me? She stared at him, no expression on her face. If I'm here and Aiden comes, I can use you as a human shield. The two of them looked at one another for a bit until Jerry broke out in a smile and started laughing. Oh my God, baby, you crack me up. You can't come out and say you love me. He kissed her. That is so adorable. She continued staring at him, stone-faced, and then forced a little smile. Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. He tried to grab her waist, but she stood up and shook her head. Stay seated and close your eyes. Just stay quiet and breathe for a minute. She kissed his forehead, and he slumped forward slightly. Open your eyes, she said. He opened his eyes and looked around as if he was seeing his apartment for the first time. Whoa. He stretched his arms up and out and then flopped them back down in his lap. I feel awesome. What's on the docket for tonight? She smiled at him. Pure platinum. We're doing the poker tournament tonight. Jerry stood up and looked down at his clothes. Sounds good. Let me go change and we'll do it. I'm feeling lucky. Chapter 14. Lucifer and Portia saw God disappear again shortly after giving Lucifer his name. He didn't say where he was going, Portia said. Lucifer looked over at her. He never does. From what I've been able to gather, he's going to other universes to see what other gods are doing. He's copying their ideas because he can't seem to come up with many of his own. But what about you and the blobs and the stick people? Lucifer looked out at the scene still playing in front of them. I had to take care of them. He pointed to a cluster of blobs. They were quivering and slowly moving in closer to one another. They were scared, he said. Lonely. What could I do? They watched the scene as Lucifer gently moved as many blobs and stick figures in around him as he could. A few wandered off, but most of them stayed close by. He stroked them gently with his newly formed hand. I was lonely and scared too, he said. Portia put her hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry. Lucifer nodded at the scene as it slowly changed again. At this point, God was back, and he had changed all of the remaining blobs into stick figures about knee-high to their creator. That's all right, he said, and he took a step back, knocking one of the stick figures over. He stumbled and fell, crushing it under his legs. Lucifer quickly helped him back up. God looked back at the figure crumpled on the floor. He scooped it up and sat in his chair with it on his lap. Is it okay? Lucifer asked. The figure quivered and tried to move, but seemed unable to. God looked at it and then gently ran his hands over it. It straightened back out and almost seemed to glow. They need to be taller, God said with a little nod. Maybe I won't trip over them if they're not so small. He gently set the figure down and stood up from his chair. Get thee behind me, he said, and Lucifer did. He waved his arm and slowly turned, with Lucifer moving with him to stay at his back. The figures under his sweeping movements all started to grow. Their appearance didn't change. They were still nondescript little white stick figures, but they grew slowly until they were all roughly the same height as God and Lucifer. Very nice, Lucifer whispered. Can they be like me? Like you? Lucifer bowed slightly. Yes, sir, if you please. God turned fully around to face him. Made in your image. No, sir, but they could be... You're lonely, God said. Is that it? I'm not enough companionship for you? When you're not here, Lucifer's voice trailed off. God's eyes brightened. You're bored. You need something to do. Here, just a moment. He looked around them at all the figures, all standing still as if they were waiting for a command. God ordered them all to sit down on the floor, and they did. Look at these things, God said to Lucifer. He sounded mildly irritated. You want them all to look like you? No, sir, but if they're not detailed enough. Huh, I guess you're right. He walked away to Lucifer's left, dodging the sitting figures as he went. Follow me. God and Lucifer walked over to one of the outer walls of the building, and as they approached, an easel appeared, followed by paints, brushes, and several canvases. God snapped his fingers, and 2 stools appeared. You create it, God said. Lucifer looked at the new items, confused. Create what, sir? Use these paints and create what you want to see here. Have the figures come sit with you one at a time and make them into what you think they should be. But how do I? Just paint right on their faces, God said with a flourish. Paint their bodies too. Try it and see what happens. For our world, paint it for me on these canvases. I'll be back later to check on your progress. How do I? God vanished before Lucifer could finish his question. Lucifer's image stood there, dumbfounded, staring at the paints and the stools. Portia nudged Lucifer. You were supposed to design everything? It was already created, Lucifer said. I just had to fill in the details. So basically, you had to design everything. The way the place would look and She pointed to the stick figure still sitting on the floor. Are those going to be us? The angels? Look at them. Portia took a small step closer to the image and studied a few of the stick figures more closely. This isn't all of us, she said after a moment. We created more later. This was just the first batch. So God's gone again. Lucifer nodded. What are we going to do now? What could I do? I started painting angels. Chapter 15. Jerry, now very relaxed and no longer worried about Aiden or anything else, was eager for a night out. After getting changed, he came back into the kitchen where Fedra was waiting for him. A poker tournament is just what I need tonight, he said, checking his reflection in a small decorative mirror on the bar and fixing his collar. Who all's going to be there? All the right people, Fedra said. Local big shots, plenty of beautiful women eager to make your acquaintance. Anything and everyone you could ever want. She was right. Jerry darted off to join a group in the main event room at Pure Platinum as soon as they arrived. Fedra watched him scamper away, looking like a kid running toward a pile of presents on Christmas morning, and headed straight upstairs as soon as Jerry was out of sight. On the second floor were various VIP rooms, small and cozy, each one with a different theme. She came to a door with a sign on it that read Magic Carpet Ride and knocked on it. Four opened the door and let her in. He tried to kiss her, but she brushed past him. Did you work out everything for Monster Jam? She asked. Four closed the door behind her. They were alone in the room. He looked her up and down, licking his lips. Yep, he's all set to be the MC. Excellent. Where is he now? Downstairs kissing the ass of some reporters and a politician when I left him. He was a nervous wreck earlier. You fixed that, I bet. I had to. He was driving me crazy, pacing around like a caged animal. He's fine now. Four gently grasped the silver sash around Fedra's waist. You think he'll stay that way? As long as nothing unexpected happens. Nice. He again made a move to kiss her, but she pushed him back. You need to understand what's going on. It's a volatile situation, and I don't know how long I'll have before things blow up. What's going to blow up? You mean when the devil comes for Jerry? He won't be coming just for Jerry. Four backed up and studied her face. What do you mean? He'll come for me too, and he won't be coming alone. What? I thought Jerry was the only one in trouble here. How can they do anything to you? I don't understand the rules of how all this works, but I don't see how you can be blamed for what he decided to do. It's a bit more complicated than that. Fedra paused, looked around the room, and seemed to lose her train of thought. Four waved his hand in front of her face and asked if she was okay. Everything's quiet for now, she said. It makes me think that they're either making their plans or Lucifer doesn't know about this yet. I doubt that that's the case. Unless things have changed, there's not much that escapes his attention. So what does that mean for you? It means that I have to be on my guard. I have to be ready. Four stood up a little taller, his face cold. Tell me what I can do to help. She smiled at him and gently kissed his cheek. Do you mean that? Do you really want to help? More than anything. He ran his fingers down her right arm. I know we haven't known each other very long, and we're not the same sort of species or whatever, but I really care about you. I like you a lot. And it's not just the sex, even though that's pretty great. I don't know. A smile slowly crept across Fedra's lips as Forrest sputtered out his response. I think I know what you're trying to say. She kissed him again, and the feeling is mutual. We definitely share something very special. So you'll let me know if I can do anything. Anything? She dimmed the lights and led him over to the bed. Oh, you can count on it. Chapter 16. Portia learned from watching the replay of past events that Lucifer, with the paints and brushes that God had created for him, could change the bumbling stick figures into walking, talking, sentient creatures. The first few looked a little rough, but he got better with practice, and he went back and made improvements on them later on. When is God coming back? She asked Lucifer as they continued to watch the scene. Not for a while, he said. Let's skip ahead a bit. The scene changed to another point in the future. Angels were milling about in the giant room, and Lucifer was busy painting the remaining stick figures. He was about to start on a new one when he heard a noise coming from the opposite side of the building. One of the angels was hitting something, but Lucifer couldn't see what. He left the stick figure and went to investigate along with several dozen other curious angels. The angel had found a door. Portia stood on tiptoe and squinted at the scene. The action was pretty far away from her main field of view. "What's going on?" she asked with a grunt. Lucifer noticed her frustration. "Let's move in closer." The scene zoomed in on the door. "Oh, wow," Portia said. "What's on the other side?" "Nothing." Portia looked at Lucifer, confused. "What do you mean, nothing? There has to be something." "Not if it hasn't been created yet." "You're telling me..." "So this is it at this point, this big building?" "That's it. The whole universe as we know it at this time consists of the interior of a large building." Lucifer nodded. "That can't be. What's the building sitting on? What's the foundation?" "At this point, it isn't sitting on anything." Portia looked down for a moment and then back up at the scene. 2 angels were banging on the door with their fists while the others watched. "Why are they doing that?" she said. Lucifer shrugged. "They seem to intrinsically know that something should be on the other side, and they'd been trapped in that building so long that they were desperate to get out and see what's out there. To explore." "We do love to see new things," Lucifer said. They watched Lucifer's image approach the door. He gently pulled the 2 angels away from the door and asked them to be patient. He then went back to painting the remaining stick figures. "I don't see me in this group," Portia said, scanning the crowd as they watched Lucifer walk back to the other side of the room. "You and Aiden hadn't been created yet. You were part of a later batch." "What about Fedra?" "Aiden and Fedra were created at the same time, along with several hundred others. You were part of a third and final batch." "What were we all even created for?" "Does there have to be a reason?" "Isn't there one?" Lucifer studied her face for a moment and then said, "We were all created to love and worship our God." And that's it. He wanted to create beings that would enrich his life, and here we are. But he's almost never here. We're the toys that lie forgotten on a child's bedroom floor. We wait for the child to come back because that's all we have the power to do. We love to be with him, but we suffer when he's gone." "Yes," Lucifer said, "yes, we do. We have each other, and we've learned to find comfort in that." He gestured to the scene. "Look at how the angels are standing, the ones who aren't focused on the door. They're in groups." "They are. We came together to avoid the sense of abandonment that we were all feeling." "Did you ever try to talk to God about this?" "I've tried thousands of times to talk to him. He doesn't understand. He keeps leaving over and over again, just the same." "He does," Portia whispered, feeling a pain deep down inside. "I miss him." "We figured out a lot of things on our own," Lucifer said. He waved his hand and the scene went dark. Portia looked at him. "Why did you do that?" "I want to skip ahead a bit." "I wanted to see the angels get out. Can we see that? When did that happen?" "It happened after God came and left a few more times. He came back with new ideas and reviewed the paintings I'd done. He didn't seem too confident in his ability to create the outside world for a long period of time, but after I gave him a few pep talks and he had enough cheat sheets from the other gods, he went for it." "Can we see that?" Lucifer played the scene. God gave a speech to the angels, who were too eager to go outside to really listen, and with a flourish he flung the doors open to reveal the beautiful landscape outside. Most of the angels rushed out all at once, but a few hung back and peeked out cautiously. God gently approached them. "Don't be afraid," he said, motioning for them to come forward. "I created this world just for you. You don't have to stay cooped up in here any longer. Come out. I've also created beautiful villages and homes for every one of you." Portia, a big smile on her face, looked over at Lucifer. She was about to comment on the scene, but the harsh, unpleasant look on Lucifer's face stopped her. "What's the matter?" she asked. He pointed at the world outside of the building. "I created that," he said. "Every blade of grass, every tree, every last bit of it. I thought he'd mention it in his speech, but he didn't. He took credit for all of it." "Did you get to go out and see it before the others?" "No. I first saw it when they saw it." "Well, how did you create it all then if you weren't out there?" "I painted it." He pointed over to his easel and paints. "We kept the paintings turned facing the wall so the others couldn't see them. They were instructed to never touch the paintings. We kept everything a secret up until this day." So God would go collect ideas from other gods. And that's what I believe he was doing, yes, Lucifer said. "You based your paintings off God's notes, his notes and sketches. But the ultimate creation," Portia said, "he did that. He couldn't have done any of it without my help. You didn't create it." Lucifer waved his right hand rapidly back and forth, and the scene disappeared. The light came back on in the room. "We're done," he said, turning on his heel and heading to the door of his office. Portia followed him. "Please, I didn't mean to upset you. I was just trying to understand how things came to be. I don't know." Lucifer pulled the office door open with a jerk. "We have to get you ready to go back," he said without looking back at her. "Go back where?" He walked on down the hall toward the receptionist's desk and waiting room without responding, with Portia right on his heels. "Please, go back where?" Lucifer stopped abruptly, causing Portia to run into him. He turned and looked at her. "Back to Earth," he said. "What do you need to do to get me ready for that?" "You have to remember who you were." "We were just going over that right now in your office." "No, you need to remember who you were on Earth. If you want to help solve this problem, you have to be able to remember how it started." Lucifer turned and continued walking up the hall until he reached the door to the waiting room. He turned around and saw that Portia hadn't moved from her spot. "Come on," he said, jerking his head in the direction of the door. "This is a mistake," she said. "I could feel it. I shouldn't have ever agreed to be part of this, whatever it is. It's too late now. You're involved whether you think it's a good idea or not." He held his hand out, and Portia walked up and delicately grasped it. "Besides," Lucifer said a little more gently, "he needs you." "Who?" "You know who." Lucifer opened the door and stepped aside. Aiden had been standing at the desk talking to Claire, but when the door opened and he saw Portia, he smiled and immediately came to stand by her side. "Let's get her where she needs to be," Lucifer said. Aiden turned to Lucifer and bowed. "Yes, sir." "Is this going to hurt?" Portia asked, taking a step back. "Not really," Lucifer said. "We just need to take a little trip." Chapter 17. Jerry was left alone, totally unsupervised, to mingle with the guests and players in the poker tournament while Fedra and Four had their meeting in the magic carpet ride room upstairs. He meandered from group to group and engaged in a playful banter for quite some time before someone offered him a seat at one of the tables. "I'm not much for gambling," he said, addressing the entire table. One of the players waved a hand in the air in protest. "The hell you're not," he said. "He laid down $10,000 like it was nothing. He lost and was just like, 'Oh well.' Dude did not care. How can you be that way, man?" Jerry laughed and shook his head. "What's a little money among friends? Speaking of which," he looked around and spotted a young woman dressed in a French maid outfit. "Bunny! Hey, Bunny!" The woman held her tray down by her side and walked over. "My name is Harmony," she whispered. Jerry ignored her and called out, asking for the attention of everyone in the room. "Y'all know who I am, right?" "Yes." "Just to show you how much I love you and how much I appreciate y'all coming out tonight, I'm buying a round of drinks for everybody. On the house. Y'all drink up." Everyone cheered. "Bunny, get everyone's drink order," he said, slapping Harmony on the backside as she walked away. Jerry looked around and saw that everyone had gone back to their own conversations almost immediately. And, hey! Everyone looked back over at Jerry. And another round after that. Hell, 2 more. Keep 'em coming, Bunny. Out of the corner of his eye as he turned, he caught a glimpse of someone sitting at one of the tables that made his heart freeze. At a glance, it looked like Aiden sitting there, watching him. He stumbled a bit, and then turned to look again just to realize it was an ordinary man. He shook himself and chuckled, trying to hide the fact that he was starting to hyperventilate. Everybody, he placed a hand on the closest table to steady himself. Drinks! On me! Dizziness almost took him to the floor, and he sat down heavily on the corner of the table. I've got money. The room fell silent. The attention that Jerry had so desperately wanted a few moments before now made his face flush in embarrassment. He grabbed a napkin off the table and wiped his forehead with it, then tossed it down on the floor. What? He said, standing back up but discreetly keeping one hand on the table. What is it? Several people mumbled and looked away. Are you okay? A lady at the table where he'd sat down asked him. Jerry swung his body around and glared at her. Don't I look okay? I look more than okay. I'm fine as hell. He paused, and the woman looked away. What difference does it make, though? Jerry asked, turning from the woman back to the rest of the crowd in the room. I've got... He dug around in his pockets, pulling out 2 fistfuls of cash and waved it around. Look at that. He threw it up in the air and let it flutter to the floor. A few people made a tentative move to go grab it, but stopped themselves and looked around. The room was still silent as Jerry pulled more money out of his pockets. I'm quite the specimen, too, huh? He rubbed a wad of $100 bills on his face, then down his body. I can't take credit for that, though. Well, actually, I can. Just not in the way you think. Jerry walked around the room while he talked, and every eye was on him. Money fell from his hands as he walked, and he left it where it fell. Not the way you think, he repeated as he briefly locked eyes with a woman, then moved on to the center of the room. Live your life without fear, he said, holding his hands up high and dropping the last few bills on the floor. Then he flopped his hands by his sides and let out a laugh. Or don't. Whatever. It won't matter in the end anyway. People started murmuring, talking amongst themselves at the tables and in little clusters around the room. Y'all disagree? Jerry said, almost in a shout. His voice was higher pitched and shaking a little. He let that question hang in the air. A camera flashed in the far left corner of the room. I was ready to end it all, he said, glancing at the reporter who had taken the picture. I'll go on the record, yeah. I've never talked about it before. History and mystery and all that. He said, my advisor always told me that I needed to keep everybody guessing. I don't think it matters anymore. Not at this point. Hell, I could be gone by this time tomorrow. So, I was ready to take my own life. I don't condone that, by the way. I'm not telling y'all to do it. Like, it's not a cool thing to do, you know. But that's where my head was at one point in the past. I called out for help. He paused and looked around the room. A few people were nodding. That's not exactly true, he said a little more softly. We won't go into the details of it, but help came to me. Does it matter how or why? Maybe, but we won't worry about it. I got the help I needed, and then literally overnight, my life changed, radically transformed. I had the life I'd always wanted, and He suddenly felt faint again and stumbled backward, bumping into the table. Harmony and several other servers came into the room at that moment and started handing out drinks, which took the attention off Jerry for a moment and gave him time to regain his composure. He watched everyone take the first sip of their drinks. Yeah, he said. Y'all enjoy. It's good, huh? They make good drinks here. Drink yourself silly. It's all on the house tonight. People clapped as Jerry made his way over to a clearing among the poker tables. People thought he'd finished his speech and turned back to one another. Jerry cleared his throat as loudly as he could, and everybody turned back toward him. Drink up, for tomorrow we die. Is that how it goes? Isn't that Shakespeare or Fraser or something like that? I don't know. Anyway, I sold my soul to the devil. The crowd mostly looked at him, confused and waiting to hear more. No, that's it, he said. Literally, I sold my soul to Satan to have all this. Several people in the room gasped. Others whispered among themselves, and a few of them stifled a laugh. Jerry reached in his pockets again and again, pulling out more cash. He dropped it on the floor. It's like a magic trick, isn't it? He said, laughing. He kept pulling money out of his pockets and dropping it on the floor until he had a considerable pile of it at his feet. Lighter, he said. No one heard him. Lighter! People looked around at each other, then back at the money on the floor. Jerry snapped his fingers, not taking his eyes off the mountain of cash. Somebody hand me a damn lighter! He snapped his fingers again and held out his hands off to his sides. Please. You're not going to light that on fire, a man said. Jerry looked over at him, an odd smile on his face. That's exactly what I'm going to do. You got a lighter? Matches? Anything? The man shook his head. You're crazy. Probably, but I understand how things work now. Lighter! A waiter sheepishly handed him a Zippo lighter and tried to remind him that open flames were not permitted in the facility, but Jerry took the lighter and ignored the warning. None of y'all are my real friends, he said, flicking the Zippo and holding it overhead. I know that. I've always known that. You're not here for me. When I was the old me, none of y'all would have given me the time of day. You'd never remember my name. That's okay. It doesn't matter. He lowered the lighter down to his waist and waved it over the pile of money. Nothing matters. A woman jumped out of her seat and leaped onto the money like it was a pile of leaves. Don't do it, she said, hugging the cash to her chest. Don't burn it. Jerry kicked her out of the way, and the money went everywhere. She scampered away with all the money she could hold, and Jerry replenished the pile from his pockets. He waved the lighter, still aflame, at the guests. Stay back. Don't touch my money. I want you to see what it all leads to. It's worse than evil. It's powerless. It can't save you, and it damn sure can't save me. Jerry dropped the lighter down into the pile of cash, and it burst into flames. He stood there watching it burn, amazed at how quickly it caught on fire. The guests gasped, yelled, and got up from their seats to get a better view of it. The money popped and crackled like a campfire. Jerry held his hands over it. I was wrong. It does have a use. My hands are nice and toasty now. The sprinklers went off, soaking everything and everyone in the room. The fire alarms blared. All the guests quickly exited the building, but Jerry just stood there, staring at the smoldering pile of half-burned bills. Fedra came running downstairs and found Jerry. She quickly surveyed the scene. What the hell did you do? She cried. Jerry looked up at her like she was a stranger. Huh? What are you doing? She looked at the pile of burnt, soaked cash. I was trying to make a point, Jerry said slowly. But then the sprinklers went off and everybody left. Fedra looked around the room and gently waved her right hand, removing all the water and returning everything to an orderly state. The pile of half-burnt money vanished. Jerry grunted when he saw that it had disappeared. What point were you trying to make? Fedra asked. And what happened to your good mood? Everything seemed fine when I left you earlier. I saw... Jerry made a lazy gesture toward a nearby empty table. There was a guy over there. I happened to glance over there and see him. I thought it was Aiden, and it freaked me out. You mean he looked like Aiden? Yeah. Well, not really when you get a good look at him, but just a passing glance, yeah, It shook me up, and I realized, or I finally admitted to myself, that this whole thing is pointless. We're not getting away. We're not getting out of this. Fedra approached him slowly, holding her arms out. Just let me relax you again. You're too upset. Jerry backed up. No, I'm fine. I don't need to be put in a trance again. I know we're screwed. Let's just have a seat. We can talk about it. No. He felt his hair and found it to be dry. We're leaving. Jerry and Fedra took the Humvee down Lee Street with Jerry driving. He zipped in and out of the lanes and ran a stoplight. I appreciate your faith in my ability to protect you while you drive, Fedra said, but don't push it. Where are we going in such a hurry? Going to that bitch's house, Jerry muttered. I'm sorry, what bitch? Amber, Jerry snapped. She's the cause of all this. I at least deserve an apology. He took a sharp right turn and a pile of napkins slid across the dashboard to the corner. The napkin on top lifted up and was sucked out of Jerry's open window. It fluttered down to the pavement. Fedra held a hand up. Amber? Oh no, we're not going there. Jerry glanced over at her, his eyebrows raised. Really? Looks to me like we are. What do you think you're going to do? Me? Nothing. She's going to give me an apology for screwing everything up. That's all. The Humvee lurched into the parking lot of her apartment complex. Jerry slowed down for speed bumps, leaning forward so he could read the apartment numbers. You think I'd remember how far down to go, he said. Shit. There. He pointed out his window. That one was mine. That's where I used to live. He stopped the vehicle and stared at the door to the apartment. Feels like that was 100 years ago. Damn. Which one's Amber's? He flicked his wrist to the right. That one right beside it. We were next door neighbors, and she never even knew my name when I lived here. She always called me Jimmy, but I didn't have the nerve to correct her. It didn't matter anyway. A man in a rusty Honda Civic pulled in behind them, waited a moment, then blew the horn. Jerry held up a middle finger where the driver could see it, and then pulled the Humvee into a parking space in front of Amber's apartment. He got out and marched up to the door. Fedra opened her door and stepped out. Jerry. He rang the doorbell several times in rapid succession and then banged on the door. Amber! Amber, you come out here! I want to talk to you! So smooth, Fedra muttered. She closed her door and took a few steps forward. He rang the doorbell again and then turned back to scan the parking lot for her car. She's not here, Jerry, Fedra said. Where is she? I'll go find her. She's not here, Fedra said more sternly. Let's go home. Leave her alone. She doesn't owe you anything. Jerry turned to face Fedra and then paused. He looked down at some bushes next to the sidewalk and he saw a loose brick in the landscape edging. He pulled it up and gripped it tightly. What are you doing? Fedra said. Put that back. Jerry turned back toward Amber's apartment and hurled the brick through her living room window. The impact and the shattering glass made an impressive sound. He stood there for a moment, replaying it in his head. Several people came out of their apartments to see what was going on. Let's go now, Fedra said. She approached him, grabbed him by the arm, and pulled him over to the passenger door of the Humvee. Get in, she said. I'll drive. She drove him straight back to his apartment, and once they got there, they went up to the roof. Fedra turned on the outdoor heaters and offered Jerry a beer. He took it and went over to the edge of the roof, leaned on the low wall, and looked out over the city. Fedra opened another beer and took a sip. He glanced over at her. You drink? Sometimes, if the mood is right. What does it taste like? Anything? It has a muted taste to me. She nodded at the bottle in his hand. Try it. Jerry took a sip. It's fine. It's a beer. You know, Fedra started to say and then trailed off. I know. Jerry turned to face her and sat down, his back up against the wall. Fedra sat down beside him. They both stared out straight ahead. There's nothing you can do, Jerry said quietly. Is there? There's always something. But I mean, in this situation, I get the feeling you're not being honest with me about the way this is going to play out. Like you're holding back. Maybe even outright lying. I don't know. Fedra set her beer down and took Jerry's hand. She squeezed it. He tried to pull away, but she held on. They're coming back, Fedra said. Aiden and the others. They'll be coming back for both of us. Jerry pulled his hand away. I've got one kill left, he said. One kill? What do you mean? A kill? A life. Take somebody out. What about it? Fedra asked. He glanced at her. I could use it on myself. That would just bring Aiden back faster. The end result wouldn't change. Besides, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to use those on yourself. So I'm like immoral until Aiden comes back. Immortal? Huh? Never mind. So am I? Not exactly, but trust me, you don't want to speed things up. My advice to you, as I said before, is to enjoy this life as much as possible while you still can. I'll do my best to handle things as they come, when they come, but in the meantime, you should enjoy what you have while you still have it. He stretched his legs out in front of him and looked around at everything. We had some pretty crazy parties here, he said, energy draining from his voice. Would you like to get some people together for tonight? He waved his right hand a little. Nah, I'd just as soon sit here on my ass drinking beer with you. Just stay with me, Fedra said. No matter what happens, stay within my reach. And there's a chance you can do something if I do? We'll stand no chance separately. Together, we... Just stick with me. Trust me. That shouldn't be too hard. They sat in silence for a while. Jerry focused on the hum of the outdoor heaters. He heard a siren in the distance. Tell me what it's like, he said after a bit. What's like? You know, hell. What's it like down there? What do you think it's like? He sat up a bit and looked at her. He held up his hands in frustration. How would I know? That's why I'm asking you. I've never been there myself. Hell was created after the war, and the ones on God's side never saw it. We're not allowed to go there. You can't go there? I said we're not allowed, but can you? Fedra thought about it for a moment. I've never tried to go, so honestly, I don't know. I've heard about it from the others, though. They say that hell and earth are similar in a lot of ways. I've never had a desire to go there. I bet it's like lots of fire and torture and screaming, lots of pain and suffering, and it just goes on forever. Like there's no end to it. So you don't even have anything to look forward to. He stopped talking suddenly, and his whole body seemed to stiffen up slightly. He looked scared. Fedra picked up his empty beer bottle and set it off to the side. It's not like that for everybody, she said, trying to reassure him. Some people are just put in isolation forever. Nothing bad ever happens to them except they get lonely and bored. Lonely and bored? Doesn't all that screaming and carrying on around them get on their nerves? Hell is a big place, Fedra said. Bigger than heaven from what I hear. Everything is spread out. For the most part, it's really quiet. Really? I don't know for sure, but that's what I've heard. She got up and fetched 2 more beers from a nearby refrigerator case. Jerry took his, popped the cap off, and chugged it. He wiped his mouth on his sleeve and tried to stifle a burp. He said something that Fedra couldn't quite make out, so she asked him to repeat it. He wiped some condensation off his beer bottle and studied the label. I said, "What's heaven like?" He didn't look up at her as she sat back down next to him. She thought about heaven for a moment and smiled, but her smile faded away to sadness before she answered. There are places out there that you can't imagine, she said. Beautiful doesn't even begin to describe it. These places are unlike anything you've ever seen. Just amazing. He looked over at her. You don't sound too enthused about it. It's nothing without the ones you love, she said softly. The one you love. Jerry set his beer down and rose to his knees. He took her beer away and set it down, then held both of her hands. She looked at him confused. Don't you worry about a thing, he half sang. I promise you, as long as I have strength and breath left in my body, you'll never have to be there without me. I'd never do that to you. I understand how much I mean to you. And if I have anything to do with it, we'll never be apart again. Don't be sad, okay? We can beat this. So what if Aiden comes and Liddy, Lucifer, whoever, with the love we feel for each other? Shoot, they can't conquer that. He kissed her and grabbed her up in a bear hug. She looked out at the night sky and sighed. And we are going to stop there. And we'll start up with chapter 18 next time. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this segment of my story. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you again really soon.